That was, yeah. That was the day the war was over. You know, at one time, there was multiple battalions of Seabees in Vietnam. If I recall, there was about 25,000 Seabees in Vietnam at any given time. And so there were several battalions. The battalion strength was right at 1,000 to 1,200 men. And of course, it was broken down into companies and so forth.
The wall was built and dedicated in 1982.
Vietnam veterans have come to Washington, D.C. to take part in this ceremony, to dedicate the memorial to all who served. Let us take a moment to remember those who were taken from us. A moment of silence.
We were over there until the 10th anniversary. We got there and we paid our respects, went down to the wall and spent some time.
And you know, there was thousands of Vietnam veterans there during that week. So I visited every name. And the last name I visited was Chief Barnes. And as I was turned to walk away, there was this huge TV camera in my face, and I was just a little bit upset. Felt like my privacy was somewhat invaded. And they wanted to interview me, and I said, no, wait just a minute. We're from CBS, and we're with the Dan Rather news team. And we'd like to ask you some questions about at that time they were reading the names out loud of the Vietnam Memorial, which they do every Veterans Day. And they were reading around the clock 58,000 names. And while that was going on, they interviewed me, and they asked for my comments about the reading of the names. And my reply was, well, there's just too many names.
And Veterans Day that year was on Wednesday, and we arrived on Saturday, so we had some time. And we decided on Monday we'd be a tourist and we'd go see Arlington National Cemetery. And we approached the entrance to the cemetery, and I said, well, I think Chief Donald Barnes is buried here, but I'm not sure. But there was a building, and we went in, and there was graves registration. So I went in the Navy room, and I asked for if there's a Marvin Shields buried at Arlington. Well, Marvin Shields was the only Seabee in the history of the Seabees, and he was from our battalion that received the Medal of Honor. And no, he's not buried. And the lady asked me, is there anyone else? And I said, how about Donald Barnes? So she's looking on microfiche, what they used. And she said, which one? I said, well, there's Donald J. Barnes is the one I'm looking for. And he was from birthplace Philadelphia. She says, yeah, we got him.
Of course, Chief Barnes, he came out of Philadelphia, but he was a career military man. And he'd had prior trips to Vietnam with other battalions. And he'd been an instructor, and he's well respected. And he was our senior chief of our company. He was the high-ranking enlisted man of our company, Alpha Company. Quite a guy. You know, he wasn't big in stature necessarily, but he had a big heart, and he knew what he was doing, and he was a good leader. And we worked together on several projects within the company office, and especially during training stateside before we deployed. And then we went together to the company office, and I spent a lot of time with him, got to know him pretty well. And there was discussion about having this detachment sent to Quezon to expand and extend the airstrip so we could fly in larger aircraft for resupply and so forth. Barnes was picked to lead that detachment, and he asked me to go with him as an administrative aide. In other words, my job would make sure everybody was accounted for and everybody had what they needed. And his job would be to, on the work site, make sure everybody was doing their jobs that needed to be done and the project was moving forward. So I was looking forward to it. The chief came by with his Jeep that one morning by the company office, and I threw my sea bag in the back of the Jeep, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean, Chief?" He said, "What are you putting your sea bag in the back of?" I said, "Well, I'm going with you, Chief." He said, "No, you're not. You didn't get the word?" I said, "What do you mean? What happened? What did I do wrong?" He said, "Well, you didn't tell me your wife was pregnant." And I said, "What's that got to do with it, Chief?" He said, "Well, I've seen my 5 kids. I want you to see yours." So he didn't take me with him. I would have been his, like I said before, I would have been his administrative aide. And within 2 weeks, rockets attack on Quezon. And he was out checking on a couple of men that hadn't answered roll call during the attack. And he himself was killed by an incoming rocket. And I've always thought that maybe he saved my life. And I really didn't have an opportunity during Vietnam to mourn the loss of someone. There was others, and friends that I lost as well. But it just wasn't an opportunity. It was, job first. Let's get our work done. Let's carry on. And I really didn't have an opportunity to mourn Chief Barnes' loss until later on when I got back home. So she gave us a little map and gave us directions on what area of the cemetery to go to. And the 5 of us were walking side by side. And now the other 4 guys didn't know Chief Barnes. They were just, out of respect, were going with me. And as we were walking up the hill, it was a bright, clear, sunny day in November. And a woman appeared in front of us. And when I say appeared, we all remember that. She just appeared. We didn't see her coming from a distance. She was suddenly in front of us. She was nicely dressed. I can still see her. She had ingrained hair on her temples. She was middle-aged, and she was wearing a nice outfit. Her colors were purple and green. And she was very nicely dressed. And she was holding a bouquet of blue artificial flowers. And out of the 5 of us, she came to me and says, "Here, put those on the grave you're going to visit." Well, I thanked her, and we kind of looked at each other, kind of all a little dumbstruck about what happened here. Where did she come from? We turned around and she walked by us, and she was gone. She appeared and disappeared about as quick as, she didn't go behind a bush or behind a tree. It was open area. She just simply appeared and disappeared. Going to the Vietnam Memorial Wall was pretty difficult. You could view it from a distance, striking, interesting, but actually going down there is like you were walking into sacred ground. And it truly is. It truly is sacred. And, seeing the names and taking the etchings and so forth. And there was 13 men that I visited on the wall. And one thing about the Vietnam Wall, it's a healing wall, and I've taken some friends to the wall that's never been there, never had the, what they said, the courage to go. And one friend, he was Army, did 2 tours in Vietnam, wounded twice, and he has said, I lost a lot of friends out of my company on the attack at Hamburger Hill. He was on that battle. And I said, come on, Jim. No, he said, finally he said, I don't know their names. I knew some of their nicknames. I said, well, come on. So we went up to the registry and they opened the Army book and what was the date, and he gave the approximate date. And here's the casualties. They got that all figured out. Well, here's the casualties on such and such a date, such and such a month, such and such a year. And once he could see those names, yeah, I remember him. So we went down the wall. I took him down there. But what a fitting memorial that is. I mean, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. It's done right. It's in chronological order. I was there in such and such in '67. Now you can go to the wall on 1967 and see the casualties and yeah. I don't save everything for Memorial Day. It's a special time when I recognize those that I've lost, my friends, and what they all meant to me and how I knew them. But I definitely think about them on Memorial Day. Absolutely. I go through the list. I couldn't tell you the list of them right there. I couldn't give you all the names right now, but boy, I remember it on Memorial Day. Sure do.